intrude and get in the way, but you know what?
You will not succeed.
We'll be on past that. God overcomes all things.
Amen.
But I guess because of my motive, I'll start back a little bit back. Out of that, anytime that I guess you were leading his sheep astray, or anytime that you were causing any of his, young ones to stumble, obviously he said it's better for you to tie a millstone around your neck. Either you're going to hang yourself, or he's going to step in and humble you. And he stepped in and he humbled me. And I thank him for his grace now. It hurts. It hurts to be humbled by God. And it's very embarrassing. And but I reflect on it now, and I thank him, that he did it when he did it, and not when things could have gotten a lot worse than it did. So I look at now. I try to look at it from the perspective of I was very angry at first, and I didn't understand a lot at first, but once I was able to get past that and really understand that he was doing it for my good and not for it to, because to perfect his love, he has to discipline us and to chastise us for his righteousness, to be perfect and true righteousness. And so I understand that more now. I won't always understand everything. I don't pretend to know or understand everything, but I can accept the fact that he has me where he is right now, and that he is a faithful God for restoring back to me what he believes that I can be a good steward over now. And so that's why we are where we are right now, and that's who we are. Casey works at the Boys Willis Pediatrics. She's an RN, and I'm looking at a couple of job opportunities right now to get back into working. But other than that, we are followers of Christ, and we have developed a personal relationship with Christ. But one of the things that's lacking in our lives are fellowship with people like are around right now. And that's what we want more than anything. And that's where My Family Refuge has come in. We need people like couples like you, anybody, that will sit down with us and talk to us, and when we're struggling, because Casey doesn't have all the answers, I don't have all the answers, and I'm not going to pretend to know. And God uses people in our lives, are some of the strongest vessels that will use obedient people in our lives that He will use as vessels to deliver information to us, whether we want to hear it or not. Sometimes we don't want to hear it, but you know what? That's usually when we're hurting or when something stings the worst, we know deep down in our hearts that it's the truth and that we needed to hear it. We just might not always, open up to it and receive it as He may have intended it to be received. So, with that being said, a lot of this ministry I'm not putting this into a box. And I know that that Casey and I have taken on the initiative of trying to direct this thing and to get it running. And I understand from a worldly perspective that you need someone kind of heading it up. But I want everybody's involvement in this thing. I want everybody to be interactive in it, a part of it as much as you want to be a part of it. Because I learned one thing, and I'll get into that in just a second, but I was at the Teen Challenge, which is a faith-based discipleship program is what they call it. It's a faith-based discipleship program that teaches young men with life-controlling issues how to rely on the Lord, how to allow Him to fully satisfy all of your needs and put Him first in your life. And through that, it helped me grow a lot, and I want to share some of that with everyone of restoring Him back to the homes and to really leading us through this endeavor. The what of My Family Refuge. It's a cell group to develop relationships with other Christians, just like I said. And it helps, I believe, when we gather in fellowship to learn together. As part of, this is a more personal setting. And that's why we chose to do it in someone's home for the first, several meetings. we're gathering together in the homes because it's a more personal setting, and you get to you feel differently when you walk into someone's home and you interact with them in their home because you develop a more intimate relationship. It's just like God calls us, into a more intimate relationship with Him, and we want to develop more intimate. I see everyone at church, but how many of y'all have ever been in my home? Very few of you have ever actually been in my home, and branching out, bringing y'all in here, I'm hoping is going to develop that intimacy with each other that we need so we don't just see each other at church, and that maybe we can start calling each other during the week or start getting together on the weekends more and start developing, a stronger core relationship and helping each other grow in Christ, which is the ultimate goal here, is to through the sanctification process. As the body of Christ, we're all members of the body, and we all want to grow closer to God through this process. And so helping each other do that, what better way to do it besides focusing on core family values in the home? And so what's the difference between this and church? I've had several people ask me that in the What is My Family Refuge? And Daniel, he gets up there and he's on his platform, and he has to give you, or us, his flock, a message that will speak not in generalities, but he cannot. It's harder for him to get more detailed and more home intensive or family intensive. Now he can do that on a weekly basis, but his is more broader reaching. Now what I'm trying to focus on here is the home. Is what we do when Casey and I get home from work, and what y'all do when y'all get home from work, and the daily practical living. When and his preaching is very practical, don't get me wrong, and anybody's preacher is very practical living, but this is just more on a personal, intimate level of interacting with each other and fellowshipping with each other and having that closer personal relationship with each other. And so, in the what of this, Casey and I are always willing to sit down with anybody and talk about our personal experiences. Some of the stuff, we might not share as openly with others, but it's not because we don't like it or anything like that. It's just one of those things where if we develop that relationship, you can't have it, and I've heard it preached for years, you can't have a covenant relationship with everyone, but it is good to start developing relationships with each other, and you find those people. You have to start somewhere, though, and that's where this is a starting point. Find those partners that are going to be your covenant partners and your covenant, spouse. Your spouse will have, someone that they can be their confidant and they can confide in, and you will as well through this. And so it's not necessarily a counseling thing. It's more of a sharing with each other thing of personal experiences, biblical advice, making sure that we're putting God back in the center of the home and we're focusing on Him at all times, because a lot of times I can call up one of my brothers in Christ and I can say, man, I'm dealing with this, and he'll say, well, you know what God said in this part of the Bible, and it's just, I needed that reminder at that time. I wasn't thinking about that. I wasn't looking at it from that perspective. Or, man, I was dealing with that a couple weeks ago. So it's just practical. So some of the topics that I'll probably be discussing in our devotions that we do, anything like preparing for marriage, because that's critical. That's something that Casey and I never really did as before we got married. We weren't prepared because we didn't have that personal relationship with God. Okay, so then all of a sudden, our situation was so highly critical that He had to separate us apart and say, okay, now you work on your personal relationship with me, then I'll put you back together when you're ready for it. And so that's how preparing for marriage can help you avoid that situation, because if you've already prepared for it and you already kind of know how to rely on Him individually, and your individual personal relationship is strong enough with Him to work things out on your own, then you understand the relationship that you have with your spouse is a complementary relationship, and you're not completely dependent on your spouse to fulfill all of your needs. Right. Where they're not even meant to fulfill all of your needs. So we have to get an understanding of what we're looking for in a partner when we're going after it. And it's not too late if we have married, and because at this particular stage in the game, we can also look at, okay, well, I'm already married, so I didn't prepare very well, but now that I am married, what can I do to help look at my strengths to complement her weaknesses, and what are her strengths to complement my weaknesses, and we can start working on that. So that'll be another topic we can look at discussing. I will definitely discuss God's view of marriage. Covenant relationships is a huge one that we'll be discussing probably really in depth. I'm really enjoy talking about covenant relationships. Becoming a servant, communication and conflict resolution, which will be fun, I'm sure. Forgiveness, sex and intimacy. Understanding, because as soon as I say intimacy, a lot of times people immediately think of sex, but really, that's just, I could go into it right now, but that's completely been convoluted throughout the centuries of what intimacy truly means and what God truly means about intimate relationships. Not only with Him, not only with your spouse, but also other brothers and sisters in Christ. So we'll be discussing that, and we'll do some other things. Parenting definitely will be a huge topic, because I'm sure that everybody in here has a perfect child, so y'all probably won't show up to that. The when and where. I know November 2nd, Wally and Michelle have opened up their home for us. That'll be November 2nd at 5. I'll be posting it. Yeah, I'll be posting it on My Family Refuge. And then we're still discussing either the 7th or the 14th about what we're going to do at that time, because we're looking at, there's a men's ministry and there's a women's ministry. And so I don't know what we're going to do there. We're going to discuss it further, and I will definitely keep y'all posted on that. But at the beginning of the year, we are going to start meeting at Fellowship Church. And that's not set in stone. If we continue to enjoy these more intimate home settings, then we still do it in the home. I'm not against that. I'm not saying that this is how it's going to be and that y'all are going to, abide by what I say. I don't want it to be like that. But this is just an outline, a rough sketch of how I can kind of see it playing out. And if y'all would rather do it in the home, then I'm all for doing it in the home. And so let's talk about probably the hot topic, why My Family Refuge, and I've already hit on it a whole lot. And really, most of this stuff I've already hit on, but one thing, it was back when I was in a freshman in high school, and it was a young man that was in Elm City, and he had a car crash. And he ran into this tree, and this was this long tree that was in the middle of the field. And it was the only tree that was sitting out there. And I've heard of this happening before, and I never understood why. But I asked somebody at that particular time, and how in the world did he hit that tree? And they were explaining to me that his focus was so on not hitting the tree that he hit the tree. And so I guess what I'm trying to say, or what he was showing me, was if he had focused his efforts not on the tree, but on any open space that would have been in that field, then he would have been successful at avoiding the tree. But his focus, he was staring at the tree the whole time because he wanted to avoid the tree. And a lot of times in my relationships, I focus on not failing. And what do I end up doing is failing in so many miserable areas. Instead of focusing on being proactive in my relationships and going out and doing what I'm supposed to do, relying on God because I know He's faithful to do what He's going to do, and then moving towards, understanding my limitations on being able to make my spouse do what they can or can't do. I have to understand, my responsibilities in the home, and I never really understood those. I never understood from a biblical perspective what God was calling me to be and what it even meant to be the priest of the home. And with not knowing, I was always focused on the wrong targets. I was always looking at the wrong things, and with that, I was always end up crashing into the wrong areas. And another huge part of there's so much advice that is given in the world. But God created marriage, and so why would we not go to God for advice on marriage? And we can look anywhere, we can turn anywhere and find any kind of worldly advice. And they give you temporary solutions for an eternal problem. And it's not sufficient. It does not satisfy what needs to be done sustainably. And so God, He's the one that provides all of the answers to our problems. And so even we can get caught up in that is listening to other people and developing on natural inclinations, I guess is a good way to put it. And we're just naturally inclined to believe this to be the truth because we've heard it for so long. We develop this thinking in our own mind that it's true, but we can provide no justifications for why it's true because it has no basis or no foundation. But when we look at the Bible, our God is not a God of confusion. He is very clear in what He outlines as our biblical roles. And I'm going to try as hard as I can not to make this any more complicated as it can be when I'm doing the devotions. And I'm just going to hopefully just outline the highlights, and I'm going to let everyone work on the details. And that's what it is. I'm going to highlight what God calls us to do, and then that's why we're all together as individual couples to help with those details. Well, I understood what God was calling me to do here, but I never really run into this situation, this nuance, this little, it threw me a curveball here, and I'm not real sure how to do it here. Let me call Brother Ken up, and let me ask him how he would do it, because he has experience with this, because I know we were talking about it a while back. So it's developing that. Another thing, as far as, I know another reason for this, and I've seen it at CFC, because personally I've been involved in CFC, is developing core relationships with people at CFC to help strengthen the church and help strengthen the people that are coming to the church. I'm sure that there are other churches. I'm sure that there's plenty of other churches that have similar issues and that are attempting to deal with them, or I'm not just calling out CFC. I'm just saying this is something that I can see benefiting CFC in the sense of developing stronger family units at CFC and developing stronger Christians at CFC, because I see it personally. I experience, and part of the problem was me not picking up the phone and calling Daniel, me not picking up the phone and calling Wally or John or Daryl or anybody. It was part of the problem was me not doing it. But it was also part of the problem was I didn't feel like that there was anybody really out there that was saying, hey, if you have a problem, hey, give me a call. And so I want us to take proactive approaches to develop those core strengths within ourselves, and then we can minister to other people. And whoever wants to be a part of this ministry, I want everybody to be a part of it, but we've got to start somewhere. And that's why 18 people is an awesome turnout. I've had so many people ask me about numbers. So many people ask, well, hey, how many people you think you have? I told her, and I'm like, Daniel, I am ecstatic to be sitting here in my house with my beautiful wife today, talking about families and being a child of God. Amen. I'm not worried about if 2 families that have shown up, which I knew 2 of them were going to show up definitely. 3. But I mean, none of that I'm worried about. I'm worried about being obedient to God. And that's another reason of the why. I think so many people, were we just talking about, I don't know if I've heard recently, and I watch a lot of TV and sermons and stuff. But anyway, I was hearing someone talk about how being obedient to God's calling on your life and not feeling equipped, not feeling like you have what it takes to do it. And that's one thing that I honestly, and I told Wally on the phone the other night, I was talking to him maybe Wednesday night after church. I told him, I said, man, I don't feel like we have the credentials to do this. As soon as I presented it to Casey and started talking to her about it, she looked at me like I was crazy. She said, Eric, we got a lot of problems. I said, baby, everybody does. That's why I'm going to seek help. That's what we're doing. That's the whole point of the ministry. I mean, we still... Now, our problems today are a whole lot less, critical as they were one day, because we've got God leading this home. But everybody goes through stuff, and if you don't, then He can't use you because you're already perfect. So what's He perfect? I mean, and so it's like I told her, Casey, I said, it's not about us having this knowledge that somebody doesn't have. It's about what we went through and being obedient to what He called us to do. And I don't have all the answers. I'm scared. I mean, I honestly, I still have, and I pray that God gives me the faith to continue moving on and continue to give me what I need to do this daily and to live this life daily. And He continues to supply my needs, and He continues to increase my measure of faith, which is great, which is awesome. And now I've got to just share that with people, and I've got to give back to what am I going to always get it right? Not even close. But I am going to be obedient to God. That's one thing that I told Him back in January when I just came to Him with a humble and contrite heart the first time in my life. And He broke me down. And that's what I told Him. I said, I will serve You and be obedient to anything that You ask me to do the rest of my life. I promise You, I will, just please, just have mercy on me at this point. Because I was just it just felt like I was just getting kicked, down. And He did, and He began restoring things to me in His time. In His time. It wasn't when I wanted it, because I wanted things a lot quicker than I was ready for. But He began restoring things to me at my time. And even with this ministry, I probably would have liked to have seen it started earlier on. And then I went back and I decided I was going to start it later on. And really, it came to me relying on Brother Daniel, our pastor, to give me that word from God, because I was creating. I can do that a lot of times. I can create conflicts in my own mind about whether I'm hearing God or myself, and because I try to either get too quick or slow down. But that's another thing that's good about the people here, is usually God can tell you, and He reassures you if you're right on time, or if you need to hold off when you're talking to other people, when you're kind of gaining a better understanding of the situation from another person's perspective.